Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 62, the week of October 12th, 2024. My name is Drew Koenig. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mads Feces. Mads, how we doing?
I'm good. You know, it's the end of the week.
It is, sure. End of the week, and we're into the last stretch of the year.
Yep, we're in Q4.
Q4, that's right. Time to start working on those end of the year lists.
Oh. Yeah, I gotta get better about organizing my stuff for that.
Well, I've mentioned that I keep a running tally of like all the shows I watch throughout the year, but I have made no attempt to put them in any kind of order. So sometime in November, I'm just going to be like, okay, really focus, sit down. What jumps out at me?
Mm-hmm.
Like I know people that like throughout the year like really order their lists for like they have like S tier and A tier and B tier shows for like their end of year list, and I'm like, I just can't get my brain to work like that. The running tally is what I got. That is as functional as I can be.
My level of functionality is I look back over the shows we talked about during the year, and then I'm like, all right, which ones did I like?
Right, yeah.
Because typically I don't venture too much outside of what we talk about, with a few exceptions, but we'll see. We'll see where we end up this year.
Well, I mean, when you think about the fact that like we talk about at least 7 shows every week,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's gonna add up pretty quick. So even just that,
and even with us, you know, like we stopped talking about the English teacher or whatever it's called, and like I got caught up on that last weekend, and I was like, oh, this show's still pretty good. You know, like we stopped talking about it, but it's still pretty good.
I do think it's less that we stop talking. This is what happens with a lot of our shows. I think, and our listeners would agree on this, that we lack object permanence. So it's not that we stop talking about shows. It's just that new shows come in, and then we forget to bring back in the old shows that we were talking about. So every week it's like, what are we talking about? I don't know, nothing, I'm sure.
Autism, ADHD brains. That's basically what it is.
Pretty much.
I literally, the only reason I thought about it last weekend to like get caught up on it was that I went onto Hulu, because lately I've been watching the Hulu shows through my Disney Plus account because convenience. Yeah. But I actually went into Hulu app proper this past weekend, and I was like, oh, I need to get caught up on English Teacher. I was like, oh, I stopped watching High Potential. I need to see if I have time to catch up on that eventually.
The end of the year comes for us all, and it is coming fast.
Indeed, the end is coming.
I am feeling pretty good about how many shows I will have watched by the end of the year, though.
Yeah.
I do think I'm still on track to watch 100 shows. I am at 74 shows right now, so yeah. I could probably pull that out.
You could potentially pull it off.
At the rate I've been going, I think so.
I know at some point before the end of this month, I might want to. There's a new show on Peacock that is like a horror thriller series called Teacup, and I plan to watch it with my roommate, and I'm like, I might want to mention it depending on how good it is on the podcast.
Right. Yeah.
It's done by James Wan, so like I like James Wan, so like I anticipate it'll be decent. I know how you feel about James Wan.
I like James Wan. Never said I don't like James Wan. Very good director.
It just depends on if I have the time to watch it, you know?
Right.
I will say Peacock is really coming in with spooky stuff this season, and I'm like, good for you, Peacock. Good for you.
Well played, Peacock. So we don't really have any news this week. It's been pretty slow. I do want to mention real quick that we talked about this last year. Over the Guard Wall is going to be releasing a stop motion animated 3-minute short next month, early November. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye out for that because as listeners of the show know, I love that series. We both love that series.
Yes, we did. Related to television but unrelated to news, I was recently at Hot Topic and they have a whole wall of Loungefly bags, and one of them was Jake from Adventure Time, and I almost bought it. And it came with, you could buy a little keychain that was BMO and attach it to the backpack.
See, now that you've watched Adventure Time, you're like recognizing the stranglehold that that show had on like hot topic Tumblr era.
Yep.
It was
I'm seeing it
absurd.
everywhere and I'm like, what?
It was aggressive. Like however bad it is now, multiply that by a billion, like 10 years ago, and it was just
Oh, I bet.
absurd. Let's move on into the goat. So the goat is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Maz nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them against each other on a poll on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and TikTok. I have not released any new episodes yet, so we do not have any old results. So we are just going to push on through. The week got away from me. This week, we are talking about, in honor of Abbott Elementary coming back, our best episode or character in a school centric show. And this is a pretty wide ranging topic. I think of like anything we've had so far, like this is
Hmm.
perhaps the most like amorphous, because this can mean so many things to so many
Yep.
different TV shows.
Oh yeah, I like considered doing like animated shows that I watched as a kid that like had characters that were school aged, because I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
technically that still falls under the parameters because they were at school most of the time in the cartoons. But then I
Hmm.
was like, no, I'm gonna go with something different. But like I did consider Danny Phantom for like a hot minute.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like a lot of the anime shows, a lot of the Nickelodeon and Disney shows, the CW shows. Some of the like MTV stuff, and then like there's everything that was like in a different vein of like school, but from like the parents or the teachers' perspective of like Boston Public, and
Hmm.
Abbott, an English teacher, and so on and so on. Uh, so that is all to say. There is no shortage of quality options to pull from. This is I think this is the one where it's like it's this so strongly depends on your definition of what we're talking about and how we're choosing to interpret it. You know,
Hmm.
more so
Yeah.
than perhaps any other week we've had. Matt, I will let you go first here with your presentation.
All right. So I talk about this show, or at least reference it, on a semi normal basis on this podcast. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go with an episode of this show because I know if I go with a character, Drew is probably going to veto it because it's one of those bigger shows that, like, all the characters are beloved and would probably take away every vote. But I'm talking about One Tree Hill, and I went with season 6, episode 3, Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly. The later seasons of One Tree Hill were kind of like hit or miss on whether or not they were really well done. And technically, at this point in the series, the main characters are no longer high school students. However, they have connection to the high school in some way, whether they're a teacher, a coach, a foster parent to a kid at the school. So I still consider this part of the series relevant to our topic. And in this episode specifically, the main cast of characters have to deal with their own grief centered around the loss of one of the basketball players on the high school team. He literally went to go get gas in his car one night and he happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time during a robbery at the gas station. And he ended up getting shot and killed. And so Brooke has to grapple with her surviving an attack the same night and the fact that her foster daughter was friends with someone that knew this kid, like, and she sort of knew this kid through her connections with the basketball team. Nathan and Lucas have to grapple with dealing with the whole team, dealing with their grief, and them also trying to understand the loss of this very significant athlete to the team. But the most emotional part of this episode comes from Nathan and Haley having to explain to their I think he's 6 at this point, 6-year-old son, Jamie, that his best friend had been killed and was not going to come back. And that's like, it's hard to do a storyline dealing with grief with children. And I felt like One Tree Hill nailed it really well. And the scene at the end of the episode where Jamie insists on being allowed to go to his funeral with his red cape that he had asked Jamie's mom to make him, so he could drape it over the coffin. And it was just very beautiful, poignant moment for a 6-year-old kid saying goodbye to his best friend, holding the hand of his godmother aunt who was breaking down and having her own emotional reaction to this loss. And it's just one of the times that One Tree Hill really, really shined in those later seasons. This show does a great job of dealing with hard topics. And so I really love this episode, even though it makes me cry every time I watch it, because it's just so well balanced. It nails every complicated emotion you could think of with something like this happening. But yeah, so that's my pick. One Tree Hill, season 6, episode 3. Get cape, wear cape, fly.
Nice. So for my pick this week, some may say it's a stretch. Some may say that I am not living by the spirit of the category. So my pick for this week is Community Season 1, Episode 23, entitled Modern Warfare, which is a infamous episode of Community that was one of the show's like first and big examples of the way that it could kind of dial in on more meta episode arcs and episode structures, where a paintball game erupts on the community college campus while Jeff Winger, played by Joel McHale, is taking a nap in his car and comes back to just be in this kind of dystopian nightmare hell, and realizing that the winner of the paintball game gets to have priority scheduling for the next semester of classes, prompted everyone going into a manic rage. And just the way this episode unfolds, and then like Kim Ji Young being brought in the last arc of the episode to be the episode's big bad. It's just really good, and it hits on like a lot of like really great like action pastiche moments of like Jeff and Britta having angry hate sex in the middle of paintball fight, or just a lot of really good stuff throughout that. And it's a great episode of showing like how willing Jeff can be to like get into so much of the madness if it like really benefits him. So it's a great episode. Also directed by Justin Lin, who did the Fast and Furious, a lot of the later Fast and Furious movies, which definitely has some of that style. So like it's a really great episode. So that is my pick for Community episode season 1, episode 23, Modern Warfare.
I almost vetoed you for that. Almost.
Almost.
But then I was like, you know what? No, I kind of want to see this pairing go down, like see what happens.
I feel like this is most weeks where you go like, I should veto you, but I kind of want to see where this chaos leads us.
Yeah, see, like I know you did the vetoes to like make it more fun, but I think it's more fun not vetoing because I want to see where it goes. Which is why it'll be very unexpected when I actually use a veto.
I have vetoes so that you can't nuke a poll with your pick.
Listen, I haven't done it in a while. And the time you did veto me, I wasn't intentionally trying to do that to the poll. I literally just wanted to talk about one of my favorite episodes. But you were like, no.
No, not on my watch. So you can go vote for both of these on, as I said, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Tumblr. And you'll have 2 days to vote once it goes live. Next week, in honor of Battlestar Galactica's 20th anniversary, that's right, everyone, 20th anniversary, we're going to be talking about best science fiction episode or character. And for clarification, this is different than our sci-fi episode. This will be science fiction in general, not sci-fi the network.
Not the channel.
Yeah. Without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show. So our first episode for this week, as always, we're talking about Dimension 20, the Unsleeping City, episode 13, Faeries and Feces. What a tremendous title.
Yes.
This episode is teeing up a lot of what is going to come with the last 2 or 3 episodes of the season. And there's just some really great stuff. I think the place we have to start with is Shaban's reintroduction as Rowan Berry, which is just there's so much good stuff there. It's just really delightful. From like we talked about the kind of like Doctor Whoism of this last week.
Yep.
Which does really bear fruit here. Of like Shaban be like, oh, I do bits now. That's fun. Which is just such a like. If Siobhan didn't pull this from Doctor Who, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun being reintroduced to this character.
Yeah, it's so good. Between like all of the kind of like you can kind of feel like Siobhan like kind of stretching in this, being like, all right, what we got here. And then just like Pete's reaction to Rowan. It's just it's so good. I just love Pete being like really upset at how hot Rowan is.
Yes. I also appreciated that Rowan was like, we should vote on this because we are in America. And it's just like
oh yeah. That whole scene in Nod where they're trying to figure out what to do with the crown now and like what to do with Rowan's kingdom. And like I really love that idea of like is Rowan was Misty a vampire or not? Like what separates her from a vampire, you know? And that whole exchange of like, well, no, if anything, she's like a minor deity, which like I actually really like that through line of like, yeah, she's just someone who gets worship, and like that's not in and of itself a bad thing.
Right. And I feel like if we're gonna go the vampire route, if anything, she's kind of like what's his name in What We Do in the Shadows. That's just an energy sucker vampire, because that's basically what she does. She sucks people's energy and uses it to stay young.
Yeah. I think the difference there though is that in What We Do in the Shadows, whenever he sucks their energy, they are consumed.
Yes. That's true.
They're noticeably like exhausted, but everyone that like meets, would meet Misty is at least framed as like being brighter for it. Like this was an enriching experience. So like, and I do think that really plays through well with like what Nod says about that. Like, yeah, she is getting something from them, but they're also getting something from her.
Absolutely.
So if anything, it is like the elephants who have like the flies on them. They're both getting something out of this arrangement. So it's not too deeply parasitical. So I really enjoyed like kind of navigating the nuance of that.
And I appreciate that that we took the time to navigate that nuance, because they could have easily just, moved forward or ignored it completely.
But also, it's always funny when like Missy / Rowan is like, these fucking fairies. These guys, just the worst. Like that moment when the fairy wants a favor from Rowan, and she's just like, I know I'm gonna regret this. It's very funny. And I think all of that is like offset. If it was just that, I think it would be a little tiring. But it's offset really well by like the rest of them there, particularly like Ricky just being like, I do not understand this.
Right. Ricky's like, what's going on? It's okay, Ricky. At least you're pretty.
And then like little interesting things like Winston voting against, basically voting against Misty, or voting against Rowan.
Yep. He's like, no, I think we should give it to these people.
That's fine.
But it's very Kingston. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it is a completely in character decision. Yeah, I appreciate that. And then just Emily just being like, what if I added some chaos here right now? And it was just like, nominate Wally.
She's just so chaotic and fun. I never know what to expect from her.
I love her so much.
I love that she's just like, Wally's a good idea.
And then just like the immediate from everyone else of like, you are not here. Don't have to listen to you. But there's a bunch of really great stuff in this episode, like Sophia getting coffee with Esther and M, and like really getting a look at like what is going on with Esther, and really seeing like what is.
Yeah, I like that. That was fun.
Yeah, and really getting to see like what is holding her back with in regards with Ricky. Although like Esther and Sophia have like that juice also, so this might just be the Esther has good chemistry with people. I did have that moment in this episode where I was like, I know what they're going for here, but also Sophia and Esther. I am not a crackpot. Yeah, and I love Sophia just like being the worst hype man for Ricky that I've ever seen.
Right.
Just really great. And then that interaction at the end of the episode that Winston has with Robert Moses.
Yes.
Which is just like Winston. It just like kind of like it's those moments that like feel like, oh, we're looking at someone at like the height of their power.
Yep.
And the height of like their formidableness.
Also, Robert Moses continues to just be a grand dick.
Just a grand dick. I did love Siobhan just being like, oh, the banal of evil. How interesting. Just giving Brennan shit about Robert Moses. Like doing everything short of just being like, good job, Brennan. Great character work.
Listen, he needs to be called out.
I love the moments where Siobhan decides this man is my enemy.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good. Yeah, and then the end here just really, as I said, really teeing up for like the last couple episodes of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, it's really fun. I think if I remember correctly, the last like 3 episodes are like basically just 2 really big battles, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. Let's move on to our next show, just Tomb Raider. I believe it is The Legend of Lara Croft, which is now streaming on Netflix, and this is an animated. I know it's animated, but I also feel like it's anime, and I don't want to put that distinction on it if it's not true. But I want to say that is true. But it's
Mm-hmm.
it is an animated show. It is picking up a lot of. It is basically a continuation of the 2013 Tomb Raider game, which I really love. I think that is a great game, and that reboot has brought out some really good Tomb Raider games. And this is a continuation to that. And picking up from Camilla Luddington, who voiced the character in the recent games. You have Haley Atwell here, voicing Lara Croft. And I think
nice.
she does really great work. She gets like a lot of really fun zingers, just like really good one-liners throughout this. Like Lara Croft is such a good like action heroine. She's really good. I really enjoy the design of that character and the way like kind of the way she moves, and I like a lot of the artwork. Like even with something as simple as like I really enjoy like the way that light moves. Like there's one shot of a motorcycle racing down the street, and it catches like the red on the tail light, and like just like the way that like it kind of drifts out like that line of red as it follows it. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that's just like really good. And there's a lot of like really great kind of flourishes similar to that throughout this. It's very globetrotting. It's a lot of what you would expect from Tomb Raider. There's a lot of subtext that is picked up, particularly from the 2013 game, of like Lara Croft's bisexuality and the kind of mildly homoerotic friendship that she had with another character in the game, Sam, who kind of lingers in the fringes of these episodes. That I think is really good. And a lot of these episodes are just like, hey, what if we gave Lara some trauma as a treat, and then kind of just piled trauma on top of trauma. So like, a lot of that's really good, and then
Mm.
Haley Atwell does really good work with that. So I would definitely recommend people go check out Tomb Raider if this is a franchise you're at all interested in, particularly saying Jack Swall, Lara Croft is very good. Like I said, it's very good character design. To stay on that, same vein, let's move on to The Legend of Vox Machina, which is back for season 3 on Prime Video. Legend of Vox Machina is an adaptation of Critical Role's first campaign, and it has all of the players from Critical Role voicing the characters. And, we're into like, we're fully picking up the thread from season 2 of like, we are battling dragons and we have to kill these dragons. It's like that joke that I think I saw on TikTok once of like, there's only 2 types of fantasy shows. One being like, there once was a time where it was dragons, and one day the dragons may return. And the other type is, we gotta kill these fucking dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And this is that second vein of like, yeah, we gotta kill these dragons. So yeah, again, I think there's a lot of like really excellent animation in this. Yeah, it's a fun thing about all of the players voicing their characters, so that like they all know their characters really well. So like they know like all of these inflections and the way to play them just kind of perfectly. And also, you get to see like a lot of the really insane things that these players did during like the actual campaign being animated.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really enjoyed like over the past couple weeks seeing like tweets of like the actual thing that happened in Critical Role and it being animated here. Yeah, yeah, it's really good, and I'm enjoying particularly like the third episode. It gets into like a lot of the interpersonal relationships that are starting to develop between in the party, and it's really good. Some of these people are so dumb and don't know how to be in a relationship, and it's just delightful. I would love for Dimension 20 to get this treatment someday, just to see like what shenanigans would ensue.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they did a fancy high thing with this, that would be insane. But one of the big things I want to mention is that the big bad for the season and last season is a dragon who is voiced by Lance Reddick, and Lance Reddick is still in this season, which I was really surprised by. And as we all know, Lance Reddick has since passed away. But I am curious like how far they can take this whole Lance Reddick voicing the bad guy, since I can't imagine they have much more Lance Reddick archives to work through.
Yeah.
But I'm super enjoying the season. Everyone who has a Dimension 20 Critical Role, it should definitely be watching this. Let's move on to our next show. Abbott Elementary, Season 4, Episode 1, entitled Back to School. Yeah, Abbott Elementary is back.
It is indeed.
So, Mads, what did you think of this?
It had its moments. I didn't feel like it was as strong of a start as previous seasons have had. But it's definitely setting up that this golf course nearby is going to be a major problem all season long. Or at least I'm hoping that's what this is setting up. The shenanigans with, why am I blanking on both of their names?
Oh,
Gregory and
Janine.
yes, Janine. Why did ignore me, folks? I'm an idiot tonight. Like I don't know, I felt like that it was cute and it was funny, but, like, I felt like it was a little too over the top. But maybe I'm just weird.
I think it's everything else about this episode that really makes it. Like, there's so many good bits and like really funny jokes throughout this episode, but it is like the Janine and Gregory stuff is good and fine, but it's not operating at the level that like the rest of the episode is operating at.
And it brings it down.
Yeah, not by a lot, but perhaps enough. But like, there's so many good things of like, what y'all doing? We're taking bribes. Like, that's so funny.
Dude, the bribe taking was my favorite part. She's like, "Oh, make sure you get me something. Carry on." Like, I love her so much. She is I would hate to work for her, but she is great.
No, or the line of like, we can call the city, or we can call my cousin and we can kill all their pets. Like, this is
I also liked the running joke with Melissa, where she's like, she's got a connection for everything, and now she's saying, "My connections don't go as far as they used to." Showing like the evolution of where they're, the neighborhood they live in and stuff, and it's just like, that's a nice little touch. Also, Barbara freaking out about the bug, but then being like, telling janitor, "No, don't kill this God's defenseless creature," but then it like crawls to her and she smashes that thing to smithereens.
yeah. And then the the opener with the white child really focusing your attention on like, oh yeah, I guess there hasn't been a white kid in the show.
Right. Because she was like, "Wait, do you guys see these people before me?" If I were those parents, I'd be like, "Yeah, we're gonna go put our kid in private school. Never mind about the public school."
It is a good example of like Abbott Elementry's like kind of seamless writing of like, yeah, there never was a white kid, and you never noticed until now.
Yep.
Bet you never thought about that, did you? It's like, no, I actually hadn't. Also, I love that moment with Ava at the end of the episode where she has like this really genuine, sincere moment with Janine and Gregory, and then immediately follows it up with something deranged and insane.
Absolutely.
And you're like, yep, there it is. There we go.
She's like, obviously our situationship is over. And Gregory starts to say something, and Janine's just like, let it go. Just let it go.
Fine.
Like, Ava, you wished you had something with Gregory.
Let's move on to our next show. Found Season 2, Episode 2, Missing While Difficult. I was curious how the show would kind of settle back into its formula after that season premiere. And I think this is a enough job at that, of trying to juggle both, everything going on with Sir and also like these episode of the week cases that they have.
Yeah.
I think this is a perfectly adequate marriage of the two.
Definitely. And I found myself continuing to be engaged with the story. So, like, I think season 2, now that it's out in the open, that she did what she did, I think it makes it a better story. Because I didn't really like season 1 with the whole lying thing, because I felt like it was preventing the team from really knowing everything about each other, which they kind of need for their type of dynamic. And I think this solved that problem. And it makes these episodes a little bit stronger.
But I think there's some pretty strong stuff throughout this episode.
I will continue to advocate for shipping Dan and Zeke. And that's funny because someone on Twitter actually pointed out, they're like, Dan's married. I'm like, yeah, but we never see that husband.
We've seen that husband like once.
We saw him briefly in season 1, but like, we don't see that man.
No.
He don't exist.
You could tell me that he wasn't married and I would believe it at this point. I think the show could effectively his husband died on the way back to his home planet. And it was like, yeah, okay.
That tracks. That's fine.
Yeah, sure. Like, I do think they could gaslight us at this point and be like, he was never married. I don't know what you're talking about.
They could, because, like, yeah, it's one of those things that we don't have it come up very often, so we are easily able to forget that it exists as a fact.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like it's not even just that his husband doesn't show up. That man never mentions his husband. He never mentions a marriage.
no, he does not. Except for those couple episodes in season 1 where that was kind of the focus. Beyond that, we've not heard him talk about his husband, and so it's like, "Oh, right, we forget that he's married." Whereas, what's her face constantly talks about her son. We know that she's still grieving her son because she still goes to the bus depot. Like, things like that, we're like, "Oh, yeah, we remember that because they are constantly part of their personality and part of their character type." Whereas Dan, it was like, "Oh, yeah, he has a husband," and then we, like, never see him again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, and I think this episode makes a good case of like, in regards to that character of like, hey, maybe that being the only thing about her character is not a good thing. Who could have possibly thought that an unhealthy coping mechanism might result in an unhealthy person?
Who would have thought?
Yeah, because like that that
Ex
that line of like, I can't do what I do anymore because of you. It's like, well, that feels unfair. That feels like a skill issue to me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like that feels like a you problem, not a Gabby problem. You know?
Right. Yeah, and I really like the stuff with the snippets of seeing Sir interact with Lacey and also his anger once he realizes that his brother has been contacted and that his brother is now involved in this investigation. And so, like, I feel like we're going to get parts of Sir that we've not seen before because he's been able to control himself very well so far, with the exception of a couple little, like, outbursts. But, like, I feel like he's losing that grip on control. And that's going to be fun, I think, in the episodes to come.
I do not trust that brother. I did try to like pinpoint of like, what is it about this guy that like be beyond just like it's his brother that I don't like. And I think it's like there to me feels like such a conscious decision on the actor's part to kind of emulate Mark Paul Gosselaar,
Yep.
you know, for that to be a performance that is so similar to his. It's like that feels too
Yeah.
purposeful to be an accident.
I don't know if I fully trust the brother yet either. Like, there's something about it that it's like it's very convenient that he shows up when he does. And it's just it'll be interesting to see how things play out because I'm curious to see if his intentions are good and we're just set up to not trust him because his mannerisms are so close to Sir, or if there really is something sinister underneath that we need to be aware of.
Well, it's like my thing is like there was no reason for him to be at that at the press thing where they give the baby back. There's a part of me that's like, did you want to be on camera, to be somewhere public where people would be videotaping, so that you would be on camera and so that your brother would see you? I don't know if these are just you know writing conveniences or something purposefully put into the writing.
Right, something a bit more calculated.
I also really liked the costuming and makeup for Lacey in this episode.
Mhm.
Just showing like that stark contrast because like Lacey is always presented as someone who is like highly not like highly fashionable, but like highly kind of stylish. Everything
Yeah.
about her is always
She's very
done.
put together.
Yeah, everything about her is always done at like a 10.
Mhm.
She consistently looks like she walked off of like a CW set.
Right.
So like the juxtaposition of that to here where like her face is bruised and her hair is like very like frizzy and all over the
Matted
place.
and tangled.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's really effective.
It's definitely like you're very aware. But oddly enough, she still looks beautiful, even though she looks like a hot mess. Which there's obvious reason why she looks like a hot mess. But that actress still has a natural beauty to her that I'm like, Damn, girl, you look good as anything. Do you think Lacey is hurt severely from that knock that she got on her head when he, like, had a freak out?
I mean, it was a pretty good hit, and like there is like that kind of like the quick flash of like blood on the floor.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, I'm inclined to think she's a little bit hurt. I don't think she's dead,
No, I don't think she's dead either.
but I do think she's pretty banged up.
I also think I might watch too many medical dramas that I was like, I saw that puddle of blood and immediately was thought, well, head injuries bleed more than anything, even if they're not severe. So maybe she's okay.
Yeah, yeah, she can still be fine. I mean, she has a concussion, but I think
Like she's gonna beat the shit out of that guy. Come on.
she's fine. Yeah, yeah. Let's move on to our next show, Doctor Odyssey, season 1, episode 3, Plastic Surgery Week. So I did not get around to watching this one this week, but Mads, tell me a bit about that.
So besides the fact that all these people slightly terrified me because of how much Botox they had in their face, um, like it was because everyone on the cruise for this week has an obsession with plastic surgery, so they all look super fake, right? And one of the patients is someone who's actually very famous as the human Ken doll. And I've actually like seen him before. And so like when he showed up, I was like, oh, I know exactly who that is. And it was really cute to see, I forget Joshua Jackson's character's name, but to see his character become a fanboy about human Ken. It was really cute to see that Joshua Jackson play that out. Because he's a very put together doctor, right? He's very serious. He smiles, yes, and he's very kind, but like he doesn't really show his full personality very often, right? And that was definitely a full personality moment. It was another situation of he watched this human Ken dolls TV show with his friends that were also made to look like other dolls while he was in quarantine in the hospital with COVID. Again, we mentioned COVID again. Um, but his interactions with this man are very emotional and really hit you in your chest. At least they did for me because, you know, you see him interacting with this guy on a human level, right? This guy's like, you know, people typically don't take us seriously because we've had so much work done. Like, you know, they feel like it's our own faults, like things like that. But he looks at him and is like, I see your fears and your concerns. Let me try to like help you with this medical condition that's come up. And then it's really sad because spoiler alert, this character ends up dying in his sleep. And so like you see Joshua Jackson really nail the emotional turmoil he's going through because yes, as a doctor, he's seen death before, but for him to see it from someone that he had a personal connection to, I think was really hard for him to grapple because he's like, I need to do my job, but like this kid, you know, this guy didn't have to die. It was an unexpected situation. And so that was a nice storyline this week. But then on the flip side, we have, my God, what is the other guy's name? I am not good with the names on this show yet because it's only been 3 episodes and I haven't paid that close attention. But the other young kid that's on his team, Tristan, that's his name, Tristan. I wanted to say Parker. I was like, that's not right. Tristan. His mom ends up being one of the people that's on the plastic surgery cruise. And so we see Tristan get come face to face with his mother, and we find out that he has mommy issues because she's always been the kind of mom that love bombs for like a day or two and then disappears for months on end, right? So he has this like complicated relationship with his mother. He loves her, but like he also can't rely on her to be there for him. And we see him kind of start to let her back in, and then she does it the same thing she's always done, which is she disappears and he has to deal with that. And there's a nice moment between him and Joshua Jackson where he says to Joshua Jackson, I think I just like the idea of being with Philippa Sue's character. I don't think I actually want to be with her. because earlier in the episode, he caught the two of them together, right? And so this is the show backing out of doing a threesome, which, ugh, so annoying. It's good that he had that introspective moment of, I want these things because I'm seeking my mother's good opinion. I'm seeking a mother that's there for me. Like, he's like, I got to figure out my own shit, basically. So it was nice episode of character growth and development, I felt. But the people freaked me out. It's fine. Like, I'm talking like extreme lips, extreme cheekbones. Like, it freaked me out a bit. Like, nope.
Let's move on to our next show. Rescue High Surf, Season 1, Episode 4, entitled Kick Out, which I had to really think today if I had watched, and I had. But I also don't think that says anything too strongly about this episode or this show in general. If I can be like, did I watch that?
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually just about to say, I was like, I know I watched it, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah, I had to really like think back and be like, what was that? What even happened in that episode?
The only thing I remember is this guy got really high and then went surfing with his buddies and ended up losing his leg to a shark.
Oh yeah, yeah. That is the part that like
Yeah.
stuck in me because I was like, there's no way they're gonna show how bad this shark attack was, and then his leg is just gone
They
in
did.
all of its glory. I was like, holy shit! I did not expect NBC to really display that, and they did.
They went hard. They were like, "Oh, we want you to see how gruesome shark attacks can be, so that maybe you'll be smart and stay out of the fucking ocean."
Oh yeah. But
especially if you're high.
Exactly. But they also obviously used all of their budget on that guy losing his leg because they could not show a shark through the rest of that episode.
They sort of did, but it was very murky. You couldn't really see it distinctly. So you were like, oh yeah, they definitely used like CGI for that. Like
right, or like archival shark footage. Just
yeah.
Overhead archival shark shot. Because like that the sequence of like the two girls on the I forget what the thing is called, but it's very cool. I would never go on it in a
They're
million.
like motorized. They're like motorized boards.
Yeah, something like that. But they're very cool. I would never in a million years, like never ever. But like that whole sequence was like, oh, the shark's right there. And it's like there's never a shark. It never feels like there's a danger of like a shark coming up. So it's like, yeah, they really
hydrofoil.
There's
They're
never
currently $300.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There are fancier ones for like over 1,000, but like the generic hydrofoil is like 300.
Yeah, you can kind of just tell like, yeah, there's no shark here. There's just not a shark's not gonna bite.
Right. I will say I did enjoy the teasing that was also happening in this episode because what's his face is clearly evidently terrified to go in the water if there's a shark, and yet he's supposedly the big macho one on the team. And so like I found it hilarious. Yeah, Laka is being made fun of because he's got a tattoo of a shark on his body, and yet he's clearly hesitant to get in the water, which again, he's smart. That's why. He's like, I know what those things can do. I have a job, yes, but I will be very hesitant about going into the water.
Don't go in the ocean, guys.
Yeah, stay out. Oh, and then the sand pit. There was the sand pit.
Oh, yeah, the sand pit. God, that was stupid.
People just being stupid, but the thing that irked me the most, and I loved M's reaction to it, was that girl came back and she was like, I was curious if you were able to find my Yeti in this sand pit. And M just looked at her like, yeah, that was totally our priority. No, we didn't see our goddamn cup.
Yeah, that was the one where it's like, okay, we're really stretching beach safety people now.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do with beach.
Right, which is kind of the fear of the show, right? of like we're 4 episodes in, and it's like already you can feel like there's only so many ways you can save someone from drowning or
Mm-hmm.
save someone who like wiped out on a surfboard. Yeah, 'cause, like if we're 4 episodes in and we're doing sharks already, that doesn't speak well.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next show, which is 911, Season 8, Episode 3, entitled Final Approach, which is the concluding episode in the 3-part B NATO extravaganza.
Yes.
Tragically, no B NATO in this episode.
No, but there was a plane landed
There was,
on the 110 in
good God,
LA.
I was like, as this episode was going along, I was like, there's no way they're going to land a plane on the interstate. That's just, I know the show is insane, but like that's not a thing that's gonna happen. And then I watched like almost in slow
You
motion.
underestimate.
Yeah, I was like, I apologize, 911. I didn't understand your game, and yeah, I kind of watched in slow motion. Like it happened to be in slow motion. I was like, oh, they're really doing this. Oh, oh yes.
You underestimated the power of Bobby and Athena's love for each other and how it sees them through the most ridiculous emergencies on the planet.
As it was happening, I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yep.
It was tremendous. No notes. Yeah, just outstanding. I saw a tweet that was like, those mentioning how the name on the plane when it landed was different than when it was up in the sky, and I was like, you know what? That only enhances my enjoyment of this episode.
Like truly, like oh my god. And the whole added level of the fake marshal showing up to to try and get Athena and that guy so they can get the black book and like that whole side quest. I'm like, oh, I forgot that this was a plot in this
Oh, right,
3-part
right.
premiere.
Yeah, because this episode is like half. We gotta land this fucking plane, and then the last half is like, oh yeah, remember we had that whole Epstein plot?
Right.
And you're like, oh right, that is a thing that happened in the first episode.
Right. I was just like, oh right, that's still happening. I loved this episode so much. It is very much peak 911 behavior. Very similar to one firefighter saving a fuck ton of people in a tsunami while injured himself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's that level of insane craziness. We love it, 911. Keep doing that because it makes you fun.
Yeah, this is everything that I wanted from 911. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can watch 911 after this because I know it will never reach this. I have plateaued all so early in my watching.
I will tell you, it'll probably be very tame for the most part throughout the rest of the season because that's the thing this show does is it's really good at premieres and having very intense finales, and then everything in between is very mellow so that you're caught unawares when it gets intense for the finale. Like they know how to really keep people coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this is why this show has still been going on after, this is the 8th season. Like this is why this show is still around.
Yeah. This might be a thing of like me just saying like, all right, what was the emergency this episode?
Mm-hmm.
And be like, okay, I'll watch that. Otherwise, I might not, because if it's just every week of like blobbity interpersonal relationship nonsense, like I don't know if I want to watch 911 for that. If I want to watch that, I can watch other shows to get that.
Yeah.
This is not what 911 exists
Absolutely.
for.
Oh no, totally. I can guarantee you the next couple episodes are definitely going to be interpersonal relationship centered. So, yeah.
This show exists for B NATO and Angela Bassett landing a plane on an interstate.
Absolutely. And last season it existed for Bobby and Athena saving people from a capsized cruise ship while in the middle of the ocean on the cruise ship. I'm telling you, this is like top tier couple goals. Like they know how to get shit done.
Let's move on to our last show of the week, which is Agatha All Along, Season 1, Episode 5, Darkest Hour, Take Thy Power. And I have very mixed feelings about this episode, which is mainly that a lot of this is not earned at all. The other witches turning against Agatha, that is a turn that is too swift. And then everything with Teen at the end of the episode is a cacophony of bullshit.
It seems to be a very similar opinion for a lot of people. With the events at the end of the episode, they were like, it doesn't match the characterization of this character in the comics. And also, like, if he is who they're saying he is, why was he being such a fanboy about Agatha so hardcore at the start of this season, right? Like, that doesn't jive with this revelation, which we knew was coming. A lot of us knew that's probably who he was, but at the same time, the connections aren't there.
Right. And for me, it's not that, it's disconnected from his comic book counterpart, but that we have not done the work for this.
Mm-hmm.
You just put it in at the end of this episode for a little bit of shock value, and it doesn't work. And like, you didn't build to this. It would be one thing if you're like laying groundwork for this, but I don't think you did, and you didn't.
No, he's been this unassuming fanboy teenager this whole time, and then all of a sudden he has these very strong powers. Like, I think it would have been better if they had just shown him using a little bit of power at the end, and we'd be like, oh, he actually has power. Like, he legitimately has power, and then done the big reveal a little bit down the line, right? We need to build up that he has power, and then them realizing it, and them trying to realize who he is, even though Agatha already knows and has known. That was fine. Like, her being like, you're so much like your mother, like, that's fine. But like, we needed more for the other characters, because it just didn't, like you said, it didn't feel earned.
And like, most people aren't even going to get like what this reveal is. Like, like, unless you're really online, you don't get that, he's Wanda's son, and the significance of the little crown or the powers. Like,
they might have, if they like are able to recognize that crown looks very similar to Wanda's, they might be like, oh, Wanda, okay. But like, most average typical TV viewers aren't that quick on the uptake. So they might, but they also most likely probably won't.
No.
And I don't think the writers are putting that into consideration.
And then yeah, like the stuff in the earlier part of the episode where like they are so willing to turn on Agatha. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't ring true. It just doesn't jive well with like what we've built up to this point. Right.
They've never fully trusted her, but they've known enough about her to be like, we can trust that she's not going to hurt us, because that hurts her final count, right? They're like, that's what we've had built up so far, is that they don't fully trust her, but they aren't going to completely turn on her, because they all have their own ambitions with going on the road, right? And with this episode, it's like all of a sudden they're like, oh no, we absolutely can't stand Agatha. We hate her. We can't trust her. We need to like not be with her. We need to be against her. And that just didn't, it just was like out of left field.
I think the only part of that like really worked for me was everything with Rio, where it's like, there's this wonderful switch from let's cut her throat to that moment where they want to leave Agatha with her mother, and like there's just that wonderful switch where like it is suddenly no longer fun and games, like it's no longer just like this little bit that Rio has. It is suddenly like this strong visceral reaction of like, fuck you. We're like, so suddenly it has to be like a real, genuine emotion of like, no, I'm not leaving her with you. Like, you're out of your mind. I'm not doing that. And just like
Right.
the strength of that moment where Rio's just like, I'm not doing that, worked really well.
I agree.
Yeah, the rest of the episode doesn't work. And even like the beginning of the episode where they're riding on brooms, and it becomes really clear that there are only so many different ways that you can photograph a actor riding on a broom. That
Yeah.
Harry Potter might have ruined that for us because there's only so many different ways to make that look good without it like just looking like the same fucking thing. Like it doesn't matter if they're riding, what is essentially a tree.
Mm-hmm.
It is still done stylistically the same way as like a Quidditch broom,
Yeah.
So even that is like a problem.
I was very disappointed that we lost Alice this episode.
Yeah.
Like, she just defeated the previous challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was doing really great, and it's like, oh no, we're just gonna kill her. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that's another thing of like all of this just does not meld together.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a cohesive episode and as a part of this show. Yeah, it just does not work.
The show started out strong.
Yeah, and I think it can still course correct from here,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where it goes from here.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued to see.
I did like the idea that like Rio wasn't at the end of the episode because she has to collect Alice's soul or whatever
Mm-hmm.
because she's death or like an agent of death. I think that's a fun idea. So that is it for this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about the return of Ghosts on CBS. Until then, Mads, where can we find you online?
On Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at DorothyNYC89. And on Tumblr, you can find me at MadsWorld15.
You can find me on Twitter at TheDrewKoenig and everywhere else at DrewKoenig. Find the podcasts on all social media platforms and on our Linktree at linktree.com/ Not Another TV Podcasts, social medias, and our Discord where you can join and talk about TV with us throughout the week. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and Spotify, along with whatever other podcatching device you use. Plus, our Libsyn feed at libsyn.com/ Not Another TV Podcast, and that is all our episodes up there. On our other feeds, you can email us at notanothertvpodcast at gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, or questions you may have. Shoot anything our way. Until next week, please remember, don't go in the ocean. It is none of your business. Goodbye.